time for Hollywood Grump.
Hey everybody, welcome to Hollywood Grump. I am the Grump, and it pains me to tell you that once again I am neck deep in construction and need to do a truncated episode this week. But come hell or high water, both of which a distinct possibility, I am going to have a full episode, hopefully, in the next week. Right, Tomas? Yeah, Tomas is holding up 10 days. 10 days. That episode is one that I've been planning for some time, dealing completely with why live action costs as much as it does, what each crew member does, how much they charge to do it, and all the little tiny hidden costs that you never think about when you're planning a live action shoot. So be sure to tune into that episode because we'll be clearing that shit up once and for all. So this week, with the limited time I have to film, I'll be answering some questions and or comments I've been getting from viewers about some previous episodes. And for all you gear nerds out there, today's episode is shot on an actual Micro Four Thirds lens for once. It's the Leica 12mm f1.4. It's okay. I'm not thrilled, but it's okay. So here we go in no discernible order, and I'll be scrolling on this computer to find some cherries as I'm answering, so apologies if I look down from time to time, but for the sake of time, I'm going to be looking while I'm answering. Okay, this one is from Kevin K. Hey Grump, I do indeed dig the show. Knowing your affinity for old lenses, which one have you used so far that looks best on mirrorless cameras? I want to start building a vintage set. Keep up the great work, blah, 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 blah. Thanks, Kevin. Unfortunately, there is no looks best. There's just sort of variations. Every lens has its own look. All of them have their own special character that you either like or you don't like, or that suits your story the best. From a straight sharpness perspective or overall picture quality perspective, I have just been blown away by late 1970s Nikkor lenses. I had never used a Nikkor lens before about a month and a half ago. I was floored. They're amazing. They're sharp without looking clinical. They have a lot of great character. Really unbelievable lenses. I love them. For overall feel, I'm such a huge fan of the original Canon FD mount SSC lenses. Mostly because my favorite cinema lens of all time is the Canon K35, and the original FD SSC lenses have almost an identical optical formula. They really look a lot like K35s at about 1/100th the price. I was actually pretty heartbroken I had to sell my complete set, and I mean 100% complete set of FD lenses this year. It broke my heart. It took me 3 years to assemble it, but they're amazing lenses for sort of an overall look. And for the most cinematic, although I cannot stand that word, you really can't beat Super Takumars. Super Takumars are amazing for sort of a warm vintage look to them. They have nice soft roll off on the highlights. You can't go wrong with them. So if you're thinking about building a set, that's really a good place to start. My advice to everyone is always to get a couple of different ones and try them out and see what really grabs you. You know, something's just gonna hit your soul, and then you'll be off to the races building a set. I hope that helps. This one from, let's see, Crystal J. Greetings, Hollywood Grump. I love your channel. I think your experience is super helpful to young filmmakers. Why don't you use any native Micro Four Thirds lenses on your GH5? It looks like everything you use needs to be adapted. I've heard using adapters can affect the lens performance or don't work. I would love your insight. Keep up the great. Thanks, Crystal. There's a couple of reasons, and you have a couple of different things in here, so let me see if I can keep this all straight. Why don't I use Micro Four Thirds lenses? Great question. I actually own a couple of Micro Four Thirds lenses. In fact, as I mentioned, I'm filming this episode with a Micro Four Thirds lens. The reason for me is twofold, and I'll step back and say I always recommend adapting other mount lenses to Micro Four Thirds rather than buying Micro Four Thirds lenses. First, because I absolutely adore the look and character of vintage glass. It's something that I fell in love with 4 to 5 years ago, and it has become an obsession, a super expensive obsession. But more importantly, it's because if you start buying into the Micro Four Thirds ecosystem, you kind of screw yourself a little bit. Technologies are constantly changing, and manufacturers are changing their lens mounts all the time. So for example, the Panasonic S1H was released this past year with a new lens mount. Actually, not a new lens mount, but they've reintroduced the L mount. Now, if you spent the last 4 years collecting Micro Four Thirds lenses, you're completely fucked because you can't adapt Micro Four Thirds lenses to full frame. But if you own F mount lenses, EF mount lenses, M42s, FDs, even Leica R lenses. Most of those lenses have a full frame image circle, so you can adapt them to pretty much anything. Not so with Micro Four Thirds. Remember, you can't go backwards. To your question about adapters negatively affecting lens performance or image quality, horseshit. Horseshit. I'm hearing this a lot from different camera channels. Stuff like, well, the mount adapters don't fit snug. There's a lot of wiggle in them. Or it's affecting the image quality. It's making everything soft. I'm not sure what these people are doing incorrectly, but I've had zero problems with my mount adapters. Absolutely no wiggle or play. They're fitting perfectly tight. The image quality is not degrading in any way, shape, or form. And for any lenses that I have that have contacts, I've had no problems at all communicating with the camera. They're all working perfectly. And I own a slew of adapters from a bunch of different manufacturers. In fact, my Canon 28mm FD lens, a vintage lens from the mid-70s, actually looks a little bit sharper when I put it on the Metabone Speed Booster. And also, don't listen to anybody that tells you that double adapting doesn't work. It absolutely works. You can buy cheap-ass $30 adapters to get your lenses to the correct flange distance and then take that adapted lens and put it on a speed booster. And it works 100% fine. There is zero degradation in the image. It works perfectly. So rather than buying 5 different adapters for your different lens mounts, buy cheap $10 to $30 adapters just to get the lenses to the right flange distance, and then put them on whatever your main adapter is on your camera. So for example, I choose to have an EF to Micro Four Thirds Metabone Speed Booster. All of my lenses, my vintage glass, are adapted with cheap adapters. So for if I have a M42 mount lens, I'm put on an M42 to EF adapter and then put that on the Metabone Speed Booster, and it works perfectly. Anyone telling you otherwise is chock full of bullshit or just doesn't know how to use lens adapters. The only times it will not work is if you have a genuinely misaligned rear element. So putting an adapter on it to change the flange distance won't do anything because the back element is kind of screwed. Or if you're trying to use autofocus lenses, clearly you can't double adapt an autofocus lens or it won't communicate with the camera. The only one that I've actually had any problems with is trying to adapt PL mount lenses to Micro Four Thirds. And I'm positive it's user error because those take some time to get the shimming just right. It's some experimentation to shim those to make sure that everything's exactly the right distance. I did not take the time to do that. Don't listen to anyone telling you that adapters are bad. In fact, I just saw one this morning where someone was asking what kind of adapter should I get? What's the best adapter for Micro Four Thirds? And the very first response was, do not adapt lenses, buy native glass. There was no explanation. That was just the comment that came back. So I'm providing the explanation. That person is full of shit. From Dan G. I love your channel, but in your very first episode, you just had to bang on millennials. We all get a bad rap from anyone remotely older than us. Not all millennials. Hey, thanks for writing, Dan. Eat a big bag of shit. You've actually just proved my point perfectly about how easily you're offended. You got offended by a little joke. Grow a pair and stop pretending that you're entitled to any kind of special treatment. If you can't handle a stupid joke on a dopey web channel, I can't imagine how much you're gonna cry and cry and cry the first time a client tells you they don't like something you're doing. The world is a harsh place. Learn how to deal with it fast, or this business definitely is not for you. Suck it up, Buttercup. Okay, let's see if we can find another one here. From Mariana O. Ooh, I love your name, Mariana. Hello, HG. Thanks for the great info. Your content is refreshing for people getting started. I want to be a cinematographer. I had a question about your episode on working for credits. You said that normally the director and cinematographer are already on board most of these projects. What do you mean by that? I hope to hear back from you. Okay, I get you. Thanks for the question, Mariana. What I meant is most of the time, not all of the time, clients aren't willing to risk using a free director or free cinematographer. Those are positions that have already been filled with paid crew. So they're supplementing with other crew. But for some reason, they're perfectly comfortable with bringing on unpaid grips, electric, sound, which baffles me because sound is easily as important as anything else. But they have no problem bringing on unpaid people to handle those tasks. I don't get it. Also, a lot of times production companies use these super low budget productions as a chance to spread their wings and finally direct something, for example. So there's an employee on the staff that's always wanted to direct. This is a perfect opportunity for them to do it because if it completely sucks, they can blame the super low budget. You get what I'm saying? So the end all be all still holds true from that episode. Do not work for credits, Mariana. Do not work for credits. Your time has value, okay? I hope that answered your question. All right, let's see. What is this one? Oh. I disagree with you that all lenses are 6K and 8K ready. It's totally okay that you do, by the way. There is definitely a difference in image quality for modern lenses. Yeah, but as I mentioned, all lenses handle image quality differently. Let's just use the word image quality to encapsulate image fidelity, sharpness, color, saturation, so on and so forth. So for example, some people love them, and I can't stand them. The new Canon Cine lenses, I think absolutely suck. I think they look like complete shit. They're soft. I can't see how anybody would use those for, let's say, green screen work, which is one of the primary reasons you use 8K cameras, is for compositing, CG work. Those lenses are rated at 8K. They look like garbage to me. And on the flip side, what attracted me to the Nikkor lenses that I mentioned a few minutes ago was someone was shooting them on a 6K camera and I just couldn't believe how beautiful they looked. They're from the 70s. Let me say this. The first use of 8K for any kind of public viewing was for a film for the Franklin Institute in 2013. The first feature film to shoot in 8K was Guardians of the Galaxy that was released in 2017. The filming of that started in 2015. The lenses they used on Guardians of the Galaxy were Angenieux Optimo zooms, Cooke Express, Panavision lenses. All of those lenses were designed and built well before 8K even existed. The optical formula for Angenieux Optimos was developed in 1976. The formula hasn't changed hardly at all since that time. That's pre-digital. Digital didn't exist. And Guardians of the Galaxy looks fucking awesome. It's amazing. So shot on what is officially non-6K or 8K ready lenses, it looks absolutely amazing. And clearly those lenses were good enough to use for CG work, for really precision green screen shooting and compositing, because that movie is 80% CG. All lenses are 6K and 8K ready. They will also be 10K and 12K ready when that eventually comes around. I'm 100% right. All right, let's do one more. From Greg S. Dear Grump, AKA Fatty McButterpants. I saw in your episode about your GH5 wish list your comments about people commenting on what gear you are or thinking of buying. Greg, that sentence should be taken out behind the barn and shot. Why do you think people don't give a shit about the gear you own? Some people just want to help others make the right choices on gears. But you seem to think there's another motive. I'd love to hear back your explanation. Keep up the great content. I love your episode about blah, 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 blah. Okay, this is a good one. This was tucked into the back of an episode a few weeks ago, and I think it actually bears repeating. The statement I made was, the only people that will ever criticize you for the gear you own or are about to own are people that are trying to make themselves comfortable about the shit they own. Exactly like religion or politics, people need to enlist as many folks as possible onto their team to convince the world they're right. Greg, they are not jiding you online because they want the best for you. They're giving you shit because they want to convince themselves they made the right choice on their gear. They need to validate that the gear they bought is the best gear. Let me put it to you this way. This is a ridiculously competitive business, especially here in LA where, there's 500,000 aspiring filmmakers, all vying for the same work. I'm sure it's the same around the rest of the country to some extent, but especially here in LA. All vying for the same work. All of us, super competitive. So if I'm convinced that I have the very best gear, the best camera, the best lenses, lighting, microphone, tripods, recorders, whatever, why the holy fuck would I want you to have the same gear as me? My stuff is all the best. Surely that's a competitive advantage, no? Certainly I can make much better films and commercials with my superior gear. So why would I want you to have the same gear? If you believe for a second that someone who just has a good heart and wants the best for you would take the time to go online just to troll you about your gear purchases, that's super naive. They do not have a good heart. If I'm trying to actually help you, I would likely say something like, hey, congratulations on your purchase, but have you considered this camera or have you tried out this camera? Not, why didn't you buy a Sony? That was a stupid move. What an a-hole move, jack off. Good luck with your autofocus, idiot. And also, don't get tied up in genuinely trying to help people online because it's fucking bananas. Another common phenomenon online is when you're in a group chat or a user forum, asking for advice, then arguing with every piece of advice you get. Clearly you weren't genuinely looking for advice. You just wanted people to agree with you and tell you that you were rock solid. Good choice, man. For example, I have one. All right. This one is from a Panasonic user group. Hey guys, I need some advice. I've been using the GH4 for the past 4 years and I love it, but really considering switching to Sony a7S. And I found a great deal on one. Thoughts on better to switch to Sony or stay with Panasonic? One member replied, very kindly, interesting. If it were me, I would stay with the Panasonic system, either a GH5S or if you can afford it, the S1H. Mostly because the quality is getting better and better with each version, and you won't need to relearn everything. The two cameras' actual image quality looks just about the same to me. That's just my 2 cents. To which the original poster replied, why on earth would I stay with Panasonic when Sony has a significantly better autofocus system and much better color science? Panasonic has dropped the ball for years now. I'd be an idiot not to switch to Sony at this point. Foolish. You can keep your Panasonic. Well, why the fuck did you ask for opinions then? You were asking for advice. Your mind was clearly made up and you were absolutely just looking for people to agree with the decision you made, which also means you already bought that Sony camera and you weren't asking anything. You made the decision to switch to Sony and you wanted everyone to say, good choice, you rock, you're so awesome. That is psychotic behavior. So anyway, Greg, I hope that answers your question. Ultimately, the decision on what gear you buy is specific to the look you like and whether or not it fits your story. What you film on makes no difference. Who gives a crap about the gear you use? You can make spectacular work on anything. In fact, here's a little piece of homework. Go online and look up a film called Palooka. Palooka is John Hess's student film that became a proof of concept that eventually became Napoleon Dynamite, a great movie. Palooka is shot on 16mm with some kind of crappy lenses. Clearly the sound was recorded separately and synced after the fact. It's using available light for the most part, and overall it doesn't look all that great. None of that shit matters. It's a spectacular, spectacular film. It's engrossing and entertaining and funny, and clearly it was good enough that it eventually became a feature film. It's all shot on garbage equipment and it's spectacular because the story's so good. So it doesn't matter what equipment you're using. You don't need to listen to anybody. You make the decisions that are best for you. The tools he used weren't great and it made no difference. It was still awesome because the story was so good. Remember this always. When an artist finishes a masterpiece, they don't thank their brushes. They're just a tool. The artist did the work. Anyway, I see by Tomas's wildly waving hands that my time is up for filming today, so please check out any of the links in the description below. Also, if you have any questions or comments you want to email me, my email address is in the description as well. If you dig the show, please like and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed Hollywood Grump. Until next time, Tomas, Get the hell out of my house.